So for those who don't know, we are Audioboom. We are a global podcasting company, and we host content, we distribute content, and we monetize content. And we do that for ourselves. We do some Audioboom original shows, and we also host content for creators across the UK, the US, and the world over, really. We have some of the world's biggest podcasts in our network. And it is those podcasts that we have seen grow incredibly over the last year, even in very, very challenging times for the world over the last 6 months. We've still seen incredible growth, in many cases double-digit percentage growth for our podcast network. And these figures here from Triton Digital Podcast Reports, which are unique for us in the UK, show that we have, in August, delivered 90 million global downloads, 13.5 million of which have been right here in the UK. That offering, in terms of reaching an audience with your commercial messages, is, for Audioboom, all about the embedded live read. And there's some figures here from global data from Podsights that talks about the power of the embedded live read versus the dynamically inserted live read that some of the industry uses as well. And you can see that over 60% more conversions are coming from embedded content. 27% better purchase rate comes from those embedded host reads that you find in Audioboom shows. And it leads to almost 70% better lead generation when you're looking at an Audioboom host read message in our podcasts about your content. And furthermore, we've also conducted a UK-based piece of research for our UK podcasts in the Audioboom network. We spoke to almost 1,500 respondents about their attitudes to advertising in podcasts and how those podcasts and those adverts really do engage with them. And the results were incredible. So 55% of people questioned said that they pay more attention to podcast adverts than they do adverts in any other medium. 88% agree that those podcasts help to grow awareness of the product or service that is being talked about in the podcast. And nearly 60% of those people say that it influences their purchasing decision. And I think most excitingly, over 50%, so 54% have made a purchase after hearing an ad in an Audioboom podcast. It's an incredible time for podcasting in what is perhaps the most challenging time that we will face in the global economy. And I think when it comes to marketing budgets that are going to be stretched and scrutinized like never before, to be able to see those kind of numbers and those kind of guarantees about ad effectiveness, impactfulness, and ultimately success in podcasting and in Audioboom's podcast network, I think it's really encouraging to see. So the first show I want to talk to you about is a new Audioboom original called Huddled Masses. And earlier I caught up with the host, Alex Hannaford. So our ambition around original content continues to grow at Audioboom, and one of the first shows that we ever released as part of the Audioboom Originals Network was a show called Dead Man Talking. It went on to become a British Podcast Award winner. It was selected in Apple and Spotify's end-of-year polls as one of the podcasts of the year, and it managed to pick up over 3 million listens during its lifetime. Dead Man Talking was an absolute bona fide Audioboom original hit, and I'm really pleased to say that I'm joined now by the host of that show to tell us about his new show, Huddled Masses. Again, we're taking social distancing to the max. Alex joins us now from upstate New York. Is that right, Alex?
That's right, yeah.
So, Huddled Masses, it is the story of real Americans during what I think we can all agree is probably one of the most pivotal times in America's history. Tell us about the show. What's the motivation behind it?
Yeah, so I mean, I've lived in the States for about 16 years, and I don't think America has ever seemed more divided. So Huddled Masses is kind of looking at America at that pivotal, like you said, moment of change. So the first series that we're working on is called Battleground. So it's to do with the election. It's a long-form interview podcast about the presidential election, which really, has become a referendum on Trump. But I mean, we're looking at all the kind of hot button issues around it.
And I mean, with this show and equally with Dead Man Talking, I think you are talking to people whose voices are either never heard or are forgotten. How important is that to you? And how important do you think the medium of the podcast is in helping tell those stories, that getting those voices heard?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the whole kind of concept behind it was to find people who could sort of talk about issues that seem to be so divisive in the States at the moment. So, the podcast medium is brilliant because we want to get those voices out. If you're in your car and you're listening to someone talking about the coronavirus, for example, we've got an interview with a New York City ER doctor who is sort of incredulous as to how this has become politicized. So just giving him a kind of platform. In fact, he said to us he's never done an interview as long as this before. So it's about 40 minutes of him and me talking about how the hell did this happen. And each episode is a different interview, like I said. So just to kind of give you a flavour, we've got an interview with a British woman who is transgender, and she sat on the Obama 2008 leadership circle for LGBTQ rights. So she talks about the bathroom bill and the Supreme Court decisions and stuff like that, and it's just really interesting to listen to somebody whose experience will be very different from a lot of the listeners. So, to give them a sense of, maybe I understand what this person is going through, rather than just reading a few headlines or watching YouTube videos and kind of having an opinion which is sort of fairly uninformed.
Alex, it sounds like it's going to be a fascinating series, and I really can't wait to hear it. Can't wait for everybody to hear it. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for telling us about Huddled Masses.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
And Huddled Masses is available to listen wherever you get your podcasts. And there are other new exciting shows as well within the Audioboom network. So we have welcomed Dope Black Dads and Dope Black Women to our stable, the award-winning Dope Black Dads. Also, The Good, The Bad and The Rugby, which is the UK's #1 rugby show, and for a time over the summer was the UK's #1 show. So very happy to welcome the gentleman into the Audioboom family. Of course, you've already heard about Huddled Masses, our Audioboom original show. On the way, I will be catching up with Heston Blumenthal to talk through his show, Journey to the Centre of Food. And here's a few other people to talk about their shows that are on the way.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks to the IAB and the Upfront event for letting me be part of this. I am looking into the managers that I had during my 22-year career. And I had 22 managers during that time as well. I've done my research. I want to know what they were really thinking. I want to know what they really wanted to say to some of those difficult characters that they had to manage. I wasn't one of the difficult characters, by the way. My new podcast is called Dion's Gaffer Tapes. I thought of the name. Thank you very much. It's coming in the autumn. And I just want to say another huge thank you to Audioboom as well for allowing me to put this on your platform. I'm looking forward to it. If you love your football and you want a bit of an insight into those managers, this is going to be right up your street. Look out for it. Dion's Gaffer Tapes.
Hello, I'm Gabby Roslin, and I would love to tell you all about my brand new podcast. It's all about entertainment, fun, positivity. That's what we're going to be bringing to you in the shape of some fantastic guests. Now, this isn't a show about how to bake banana bread or how to skin a fish. This is purely and simply about fun and entertainment and positivity. Its title is That Gabby Roslin Podcast. Just as it says, That Gabby Roslin Podcast. Now, the guests that we've got lined up, take a deep breath because I'm very overexcited. In fact, when I found out, I screamed. We have Dame Judi Dench and her daughter, Finty Williams. We have Richard E. Grant. We have Robbie Williams. In fact, there are so many more, and I'm not going to list them all to you. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but please listen. I really am beyond excited. In fact, when I got the email saying they said yes, this is what I did. Yes! Anyway, please listen. That Gabby Roslin Podcast. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to what an adult human lady looks like first thing in the morning with no makeup on. I'm Sue Perkins. You might know me for leaving some of the most successful shows on television, and now I'm doing a podcast, an hour or so with Sue Perkins. Now, format-wise, I'm not going to lie, it's not the most complex thing for you to get your heads around. It's basically me sitting here during a pandemic in my pants, nattering to friends, to colleagues, to people I've loved and admired from afar, spending 60 seconds or thereabouts. It's not pre-planned, it's completely improvised. It's what's happening in the moment between the two of us. There's no agenda, there's no puff piece, there's no PR teams present, there's no corporate reaching out. It's a little bit like this video, to be honest. It's a little slapdash. It's a little rough around the edges. And there's always that embarrassing moment at the very end where you can't work out where the off button is.
Really excited to hear those podcasts when they arrive. Please do look out for them wherever you get your podcasts. Almost there. Earlier on, I spoke to celebrity chef and new podcaster Heston Blumenthal about his show, Journey to the Centre of Food. And finally today, I'm pleased to say I have one more very special guest left to join us. His podcast, Journey to the Centre of Food, is a deep dive inside the food we eat, exploring the very core of our simplest ingredients. He's a chef, a writer, a broadcaster, a TV star, and now a podcaster. Welcome, Heston Blumenthal.
Thank you.
Welcome to the IAB Upfront. Thank you for joining us. So it looks absolutely gorgeous where you are. Just tell us where you are, Heston.
I'm about 45-50 minutes west of Marseille, near Saint-Rémy de Provence, in Provence, in a national park called Les Alpilles.
Sounds absolutely idyllic. And we are, of course, taking social distancing to the max, putting you on a different time zone in a different country. So thank you very much for joining us. So Heston, your podcast, Centred to the Journey of Food, is, I think, like much of your work, it's about food, but it's about so much more than food, isn't it? It's about science, it's history, it's food. What is it about the podcast that appeals to you and you think will appeal to listeners?
I think that, in essence, what we're looking at here is the invisible making the visible. It's the stuff we can't see that produces the stuff we can see. And we tend to look only at the stuff that we can see or the stuff that we can hear. But all of those things generate emotions in us. And an awareness of an emotion is a feeling. So what I'm fascinated in, and have been for years, I'm just much more aware of it now, is our relationship with food. And the most intimate relationship a human being has, I think, is with themselves and their breath. It's like we're all on our own sort of hero's journey, to use a storytelling template of the hero's journey. We connect with that template because we're all on it ourselves, each one of us. And that also means the potential ability to discover more about ourselves, to learn more about us and our relationship with our planet, this incredible planet that we live on and that we're part of. And by exploring, Jay came up with the deep delving phrase. I thought of it recently as an interesting way to say it was emotional seasoning.
Oh, I like that. That works.
Because it's on every level, through cooking and through eating. So through the objects of food, let's say, we can start to look at our relationship with food more. And this is what we want to explore in these podcasts. And the fact that after the relationship with ourselves and our breath, which is the most important thing we have to do to live, after breathing is drinking and eating and then sleeping. And then if we do those things, we can get on with doing all the other important things in our life. And I think that our relationship with food is what has shaped us uniquely as human beings. It's what's shaped the formation of our bodies and brains and gut and all of these other things from a biological point of view that has led to this incredible ability to imagine things that don't exist. And through that imagination, we can then create and have created shared beliefs. And those shared beliefs range from science and education through to social media and telephones, from music to art, from podcasts to storytelling. But it's come from imagination, and that's come from questioning. So questioning, imagining, questioning, curiosity leading to discovery.
And you are discovering that in every single episode. And is the medium of the podcast allowing you to do that ever more than you have before? Because it is I think the beauty of podcasting is that you can delve deeper than in many other media. Are you finding that as you're entering into podcasting more and more?
Yes, I'm loving it. I'm loving it more than any other, I think, media platform that I've done. It also helps. I've got Jay asking me questions, and has this ability. It's like, I mean, kids ask questions that adults can be a little bit at first embarrassed about, but they're questions they really wanted to ask themselves, but they were too embarrassed to ask the question because they might have sounded stupid. But they're the questions that lead to discoveries. They're the questions that, you know, as I said, the questions that we want to answer, but we're too scared of asking them.
Absolutely. And for those people who haven't yet heard the podcast, Jay, tell us who Jay is. He's the listener, really, in this.
Jay Taylor is Mr. Director Pants, as he's been known, has come to be known.
Official title.
Yes, and we have made many television programs which have not necessarily the priority order of importance of what they were set out to do. They were set out to produce a TV show that was food centric, but they really have all explored our relationship with food. And Jay and I have travelled to the ends of the earth and eaten some pretty extreme things in the process. Maybe myself a bit more than Jay. He's got the excuse / benefit of hiding behind the camera.
He says you have an ironclad stomach as well. So
yeah, yes, that's both a benefit and a hindrance.
And in terms of the knowledge that you have and the knowledge that you share on the podcast, I mean, you probably know more about food than most people have forgotten in their lifetimes. But what have you learned over the course of the podcast? And what is it that keeps you going and keeps you delving into those different ingredients?
I think because this subject, I realised our relationship with food, which goes from hunting, gathering, farming, transporting and packaging and cooking and eating and sharing, it covers everything from physics to chemistry, from biology to history, from geography to philosophy, from music and art through to geology, evolution, and I mean crazily things like from string theory to quantum physics. Is you can connect all of these things with food, because without food we would not have evolved in the way in the creative way that we evolved. We would not evolve in that creative way to be able to form big groups of people working together to produce stuff. So there's hundreds of things to discover about ourselves. So it's the universe inside of us and how it relates and interacts with the universe outside of us.
And it's exactly that kind of exploration we can expect in forthcoming episodes and more of the podcast. So excited to hear more from you, Heston. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from France. It's been a pleasure.
Mike, thank you very much.
Heston's show is out now, Journey to the Centre of Food. Thank you so much for joining us today at the IAB Upfront. Hopefully in 2021 we can do it all in person, but have a great day.